Hi everyone, it's me, Rylan, and I'm back with another album review. Today I'm going to be looking at not a particularly obscure band, but these couple albums I find get very overlooked, I think, in their catalog, and of course it's the Mick Bolton era, UFO 1. I might also be doing a review for the second album, which has a lot more space rock feel, but this has a lot of those same elements as well. Let's flip to the back here. Get all this record. It keeps trying to come out. This is where you get all four of them. I believe. Let's see. To your upper. Sorry, the screen is flipped. It should be to your upper left. You'll see Mick Bolton out of the faces. On your lower right, you will see Andy Parker on drums. Lower left, you will see Pete Way on bass. And in the upper left, you'll see, upper right, you'll see Phil Mogg, the for vocals on this album. And they're vocalists for years and years and years. So anyways, this album has a lot of different flavors to it. This might even be one of my favorite albums ever. And I know that's quite a bold statement to make. I just think that I love the raw sound of the record, and I think that there aren't really any weak songs on this record, I don't think. I just love how raw and naive it is. And this album, fortunately, ranks pretty low on a lot of UFO fans' lists. But yeah, so let's get things started. So it says on the back here, a couple of months ago, Noel Moore, Beacon label manager, called me up and asked if I could visit his office as soon as I was able. That meant immediately. He said that he had found an exciting new group, and he wanted my opinion for what it was worth on their talents. Listening to the record was a rewarding experience, and I said I wanted to become involved in their welfare as soon as possible. This too meant immediately. My first meeting with the band proved my thoughts to be correct. They were young, probably not long out of school, and still experimenting with sound. Although they were quite accomplished musicians, the boys, Mick Bolton, 20, lead guitar, Pete Way, 19, Andy Parker, 18, and Phil Mogg, 19, were still having some difficulty coordinating. But as I said, this was a couple of months ago. Now we consider them to be together enough for us to release a first album. Many of the tracks are written between them and are a musical expression on their innocence and the thoughts of the world we live in. We all hope you enjoy it as much as the boys did making it. Derek Abrahams. You can see it on the back right there. Should be this paragraph down here. Yeah. So, kicking off side 1, you have the instrumental, Unidentified Flying Object, which is kind of a cool little opener to the album. Just kind of meandering drums, kind of that steady rock beat, and some floating guitars. This album is very trippy, which is something I kind of like. I don't really know how to explain it. It's just like you kind of have to listen to it. And then kicking things off, really getting into the album, you have the song Boogie as the second track on side 1, which is a really good hard rock jam boogie as it is. I believe it could also be Boogie for George. But it's called Boogie here, so that's what I'm going to go with. But yeah, just like some really nice hard rocking stuff there. So next up, you have Come On Everybody, which is a cover of Eddie Cochran's 1950s classic. Sounds very similar to Summertime Blues by Blue Cheer, possibly even a bit more distorted, if you can imagine that. But yeah, I would say it's a pretty good cover. I think pretty rousing cover. Excuse me. Next up, you have "Shake It About," which has a very cool bass line by Pete Way. This whole album, the bass is very upfront in the mix, almost even louder than the guitar in certain spots, just because, and that's something I really like about the album too. It really puts the bass up front. Bass has a very fat tone to it, which is something I really enjoy. So yeah, "Shake It About" has a really cool groove. It's almost kind of like boogie once you start getting into the song. But yeah. Then next up, as the last track on side 1, you have "Melinda," which I believe was first done in the early 60s. I forget by who. His name was Harry something, I believe. But it's been covered by Uriah Heep, UFO, Velvet Fog. They all did their own versions of this tune, and probably even more people have covered it as well. But basically, it's kind of an anti-war song. Very haunting. It's a very haunting song. From Phil Mogg's astounding vocals, he just kind of really puts you in that chilled, almost state, especially towards the end of the song. He really gets into it and starts kind of following along with the instruments. Another thing I noticed is on that track, they had a piano playing in reverse, and so the attack is a lot less, and then it builds up, and I don't even know how to describe it. It's really cool. So if you haven't listened to this album, I would highly recommend it. I think it's for anyone that likes early 70s kind of psych and hard rock almost. I think this is... some people have kind of said it's almost similar to Black Sabbath a little bit, but yeah, maybe not quite as heavy. They had a couple other things, genres they were going for in this album. So side 2 opens with "Timothy," which is an upbeat, bass-heavy song with some grooving drums from Andy Parker, pretty up-tempo, and a insane guitar solo by Mick Bolton. He also has I don't know what he's using for his guitar tone, but I always loved the guitar tone on this album. He just has a very, I don't even know, distorted sound. It was almost like they went into the studio and they absolutely did nothing to like the tapes or anything like that. I mean, you can hear reverb on it, but it's so raw sounding. It's like they spent like an hour mixing the entire album. But I'm not saying that in a bad way, because it's very... I can't imagine the album any other way. So, next up is "Follow You Home," which is very reminiscent of "You Really Got Me" by the Kinks. The riff is very similar, which I also believe was an anti-war or a war protest song. It's a cool song, kind of along the lines of "Timothy" a little bit. And yeah, I don't really know what to say about that one. Probably a more standard rock beat for that one, but still some really nice drums there. "Treacle People" is the next track on side 2. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that song. I did actually react to it on my channel, so if you want to check that out, then you can. But anyways, it's just a more slow tempo song, but it has some wah pedal. I also forgot to mention that the song "Melinda" features a wah pedal closing out side 1 with guitar, just kind of overlaid over some of the sections. But anyways, "Treacle People" also features wah pedal, and treacle. Apparently, I figured it out. It's like kind of a syrup, almost like molasses, or like, yeah. But it's just a term for that. Also, I think that song has a very deep meaning, and somebody pointed this out. It's kind of like entering the void. I just don't know what that deep meaning is. You know, there's a couple lyrics in there where it's like, backwards I talked, backwards I slept, and like this stuff. And then it transfers into this really cool section where everything all of a sudden shifts and it becomes more distorted and it sounds farther away, and it could even be possibly a phaser or a flanger on there or something, but it just sounds so cool. And I just feel like with, I don't even know, my God. They didn't have a lot of studio experience, well, none, but I feel like they experimented a lot for a first album, you know. If you compare this to something by Rush, let's say, or something. I'm not trying to knock Rush's first album down, because it's very solid. But I'm just saying, I think this is very experimental for a band's first album, and I think they became a bit more mainstream with Shanker. But, you know, they were still a really good band, good hard rock band. But I think they really took a more mainstream direction after the first 3 albums. Although I do adore Phenomenon. I really like that album. So next up, Who Do You Love, which is, I think, the longest song in the album. It's just, I would like to say 7 or 8 minutes. Maybe I'm thinking too much of that, but yeah, filled with some mysterious guitar solos, and honestly, it might be my favorite version of the song. I just love the intro with Phil Moggs building vocals, and it's like a fog machine or something. I don't know. It's like at the beginning, it's just so cool the way it just starts and builds up. And then it has that classic beat, the do 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 do. Yeah. And then the album closes out with the song Evil, which is a very cool, that's probably the song I've listened to most off this album, honestly. So this album has 10 tracks, but Evil is a very cool kind of, I don't know if I want to say boogie, but it's kind of like a almost, you can dance to it, kind of. Just has a really nice groove on the drums, and I really adore Mick Bolton's playing. I don't know why, it just has this sloppiness kind of to it that I like. And he was a very good guitar player when he wanted to be, but there's just something about almost like the moments where things almost fall apart. There's almost a section in Who Do You Love where the drums and the guitar just go off time for like, I don't even know, 5 seconds, but then they come back together and they resync, and I just, what can you say? I mean, but yeah, I think that's about all I have to say for this album, and I'll see you guys in the next video.